These four men have been performing for 4 years. In that time, they've been responsible for selling records worth $30 million. By some accounts, they are the favorite rock group of American teenagers. Their name, for no reason immediately apparent, is KISS.
What a way to make a living.
Welcome to episode 6 of KISSTORY, my little series about the history of my favorite band, KISS. Now, that clip that you just watched is from a television show called The Land of Hype and Glory from early 1978. And the Land of Hype and Glory is pretty much the world that KISS have always kind of existed within. They are masters of hype. You know the band partially probably because you've had their logo punched into your memory on everything, like from just any kind of merchandise you can imagine has been issued with the KISS logo on it. And I've always found it interesting that KISS's public image has always been, they've always kind of projected themselves as being a more famous and successful rock band that they ever actually were. If you ask Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley, they will tell you that KISS was the most famous and greatest rock band to ever exist. They, and that has never verifiably been a true fact, but it's this sort of unwavering confidence that has been the reason for their success and also simultaneously the reason for their downfall. In early 1978, KISS was at their absolute peak. They were all over television. They had won the People's Choice Award for Best Song and the Kids' Choice Award for Best Rock Band as well, or the Teens' Choice Award, I think it was. I forget which one. They had diversified their fan base by playing on, for example, the Paul Lynde Halloween special, and their songs were being played on American Bandstand. And since Beth was such a huge hit, adults were starting to appreciate it as well. So if you went to a KISS concert in 1977-78, you would have seen families coming to the show, which was bizarre if you look at the fact that 3 years earlier they had kind of been considered this evil band. Oh, keep the kids away. They're demonic and satanic, and of course the religious groups always said that even throughout their popularity. But anyway, the funny thing about being at your peak is that you kind of have nowhere to go but down, and that's what I'm going to talk about in the next couple episodes. I find the downfall of KISS in the late 70s and early 80s to be almost as fascinating as their rise to fame. So, at the start of 1978, KISS was on the road in the United States at the end of their Alive 2 tour for this awesome double live album. That tour ended in February, after which point KISS took about a month off, and then they went to Japan after that. On that Alive 2 American tour, by the way, they did, I think, three straight shows at Madison Square Garden, and they just managed to do one about a year earlier, so they were absolutely still exponentially growing. So then they did a tour of Japan, which saw them beat their previous attendance record at the Budokan Hall in Tokyo by playing 5 consecutive sold-out shows. Unbelievable. And that ended this incredible cycle of touring that lasted essentially 4 years. KISS really never took a break, or at least never took an extended break from the road between February of 1974 and like March, April of 1978, so over 4 years. They were understandably exhausted of the road and of dealing with each other. There was a lot of infighting in the band at the time. Peter Criss was... I've listened to some audio clips from around that time. He was definitely a hard person to deal with at that time, as well as having quite a coke problem. And Ace Frehley was doing a hell of a lot of drinking at that point as well. And Gene and Paul had just gained such massive egos that they were becoming pretty intolerable as well. So they had an interesting decision to make. they really wanted to take a break from touring, but they also wanted to somehow bring their power and influence up to the next level, try to find a way to do that. And Bill Aucoin, their manager, came up with an interesting idea. He looked at the Beatles model. Like I said, Beatles are the biggest band in the world, and Kiss thought they were the biggest band in the world, so naturally the Beatles would be who they'd try to follow in the footsteps of. And so Bill Aucoin thought, when the Beatles had toured the world and released an incredible amount of successful music, what did they do? They made some movies. 4 to be exact. I guess technically 5. But yeah, they made these movies and they created an even new larger-than-life public image of the Beatles. And so Bill Aucoin thought we should do that with Kiss. I mean, look, they're comic book heroes. Literally, they had just done a Marvel Comics issue in which they did a public thing where they deposited vials of their own blood into the red ink, and then allegedly that red ink accidentally got used for like the Hulk or something and never wound up in the actual Kiss comic. But anyway, that's a whole other story. They decided to make a movie because they're 4 individual kind of superhero personas, and it's just made for a movie. So they signed a deal with NBC to do a straight-to-television motion picture called Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. They filmed it at Magic Mountain in LA. And so the story is that it's an amusement park and they're hiring Kiss to do a concert, but they've got this evil mad scientist type dude who's creating these animatronic people who come to life. It's crazy. It's really terrible. And then Kiss has to be the heroes to like save the day or whatever. I've watched the movie a few times just because it's one of those movies that is so unbelievably terrible that you just can't help but watch.
No gratitude need be voiced. Your mind speaks to us.
You're looking for someone, but it's not Kiss. Gene's clean.
A pussycat. Almost.
Hi, Curly.
Gene's brother was an only child.
Easy, Catman. They are serious.
Devereaux.
Looks like we made the wrong turn.
Audio aids. Nice touch.
Discretion is the better part of...
Enough said. Ace.
And yeah, it's just notorious for being awful. The special effects are very... Bear in mind, this is a year after Star Wars, so everything's trying to be Star Wars. And that was... They kind of talked about this movie like it was supposed to be a Hard Day's Night meets Star Wars, and it was... Wow. I mean, the special effects are appalling. The acting is even worse. And it's not great, but it's very enjoyable to watch just for its crappiness. But although it's pretty universally not loved as a movie, it was actually successful when it first came out. It was, I think, the second most watched movie that NBC put out that year. Lots of kids watched it. But so I won't call it a failure, but I will say that it did kind of make Kiss look like a joke. Also around this time, this compilation album came out, double platinum, to kind of bridge the gap between Kiss studio albums, because again, they were kind of trying to take a break. It's hard to show this on camera because it's got that Mylar finish on it. And despite the name double platinum, I don't believe Kiss ever had a single go double platinum. So again, there's some hype for you. And then after that movie came out, it became another question of what should we do next? How do we keep moving forward and going up? They decided to do something that I don't think any other band has ever done that I know of. So in, I believe it was August, perhaps September of 1978, each of the 4 members of Kiss released a solo album on the same day.
You're watching a machine turn soft, hot plastic into cold, hard cash. Breaking records by making records. More than 4 million of them. It's the biggest single batch of new albums ever packaged in one day for worldwide distribution. That tops even the Beatles at their best, and everyone else who ever tried to turn a profit at 33 1/3 revolutions per minute. The place is a pressing plant in Los Angeles, center city of the rock music world. The group is KISS, the label's Casablanca, and the ultimate payoff, a staggering $40 million. In the case of KISS, each member of the four-man group competes alone with his own solo album, and that's unheard of in any business other than this.
Anyway, so at this time, KISS was kind of thinking, and their management was thinking, wow, KISS fans are so into this band, they'll literally buy anything they put out. Their last several albums had sold at least 1 million copies each. Their last few albums, at least. So they figured, wow, if we release 4 albums on the same day, KISS fans will buy all of them, and then we can sell 1 million each. So what they did was they actually, for a first-run pressing, they printed 1 million of each of these albums. You'll notice that my copy of Paul's, that's Peter's, my copy of Paul's solo album has the corner cut out of it. That's because at some point during this album's lifespan, it probably wound up in a bargain bin. That's what they used to do. They used to clip the corners when it went into a dollar bin. And that wound up being the fate of at least half of these solo albums that they put out. They issued 1 million each, so they no band has ever put out 4 million first-run copies of anything. And that's what they did, release 4 million albums all at once. Needless to say, they couldn't sell all of them by any means, and it was the start of things to come. KISS had overhyped themselves, over-promoted themselves. Casablanca Records, their record label, was guilty of that as well. Neil Bogart ran Casablanca, and then, Bill Aucoin, their manager. Same thing. They thought they could have more success than they did with those albums, and it wound up losing, I believe it lost the record label a fair amount of money. And I know that record stores were trying to ship copies back to them. They were like, we don't know what to do with these. You had Paul Stanley. This is my favorite studio album of the 4.
Hold me, touch me.
Ace Frehley, he had the most popular album and the only one that really had any discernible hit on it. Of course, he had the song New York Groove.
I'm back in the New York groove. I'm back in the New York groove.
Yeah, Peter Criss, this is probably the least liked of all of the 1978 solo albums, at least by hardcore KISS fans.
I was tossing and turning and tossing and turning.
Then you also had, I don't have the album to show you, but Gene Simmons' solo album.
When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are.
No, I'm not kidding. That was actually on his solo album. He did a cover of When You Wish Upon a Star. It meant a lot to him, personal reasons, because he came to America, and it was one of the first songs he ever learned after he came to America from Israel. But still, again, remember what I told you about KISS was starting to look like a joke? And then for the few months after these albums came out, KISS fans heard relatively little about the band until they returned with some more epic hype in the spring of 1979 for the return of KISS. Now, I will cover the return of KISS in the next episode, but you can start to see the wheels falling off the bus now. By the end of 1978, KISS are still quite a successful band, although they haven't toured in almost a year. But yeah, I guess it's that combined lack of touring. Bear in mind, KISS was always known more for their live shows than for their actual released music. Although they did have a few hits, but compared to the other bands of comparable size, if you look at KISS's hits, they never had a number one hit. They had maybe a handful of top 10s in their history. Rock and Roll All Night, Shout It Out Loud, I guess, Beth, Detroit Rock City, I Was Made for Loving You. That's about it. Maybe Forever. But so they hadn't done a live show in a long time. They had put out a movie and 4 solo albums. But whatever they were doing wasn't working. So in 1979, they came up with a bold new idea that involved another massive American tour. The return of Kiss. New studio album, new costumes, new stage, new show. But it certainly didn't do enough to save Kiss, and I'll cover that in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. I've had so much useless Kiss knowledge in my head for so long that it's been fun to get some of it out on this series. For those of you who don't know, I'm also a professional musician myself. You can check out a full list of all my upcoming concert dates as well as links to where you can find my music where it's sold or streamed online in the description down there. And also, just like this video if you liked what you saw. Subscribe to this channel if you've been enjoying my videos. And you can even ring the notification bell if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video, which should be tomorrow and most days for the foreseeable future. I won't have a new episode of this series tomorrow. I try to do an episode of this every couple weeks or so, whenever I have a day off and I want to cover it. And I'm very excited to cover the return of Kiss 1979 in my next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you with a new episode of my daily vlog again tomorrow. See you then.